live streamers. We'll close that down. Beautiful. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Renee Main, and welcome to the Hedonistic Way show. You would not believe what this epic human has been through. She's a stat. She is multiple stats, yet she is so much more than just a number. Has been on the journey to worthy, and she has made many pit stops along the way. She did not pass go, yet she is moving through this monopoly board of life and dancing to the tune like the Pied Piper. She is selling out her events like hotcakes, and she has an army that's fierce as and women singing her praise. She is real, she is raw, she is relatable. She is speaking to the real issues that we all face, and she is absolutely remarkable. She is the host and the creator of The Journey to Worthy, the podcast, the merch, and the movement. And I welcome to the show Vanessa. Hello.
Hello, that was nice. If you could just follow me around at home and introduce me to my family that way, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
That's funny you say. Well, I was having this conversation with a friend last week, right? And, being in the work that we do, often people will say like, oh, wow, your daughters are so lucky to have a mother like you. And you're like, and sometimes you're like, I feel like I'm the cosmic mother. And you're like, oh. And then, but your kids are like, oh.
Yeah. Personally, I go out into the backyard, I sing a song, and all the animals come and land on me. It's like, but my kids never see it. I don't know what's going on.
Exactly. What is wrong with them? And that's something that it sometimes drives me crazy, but sometimes I love, because it they help me think on my feet and keep me humble and keep me real, which, for me, humility is one of my highest values. So it's such an important piece for me. But let's talk about you. I want to know about you. So, Ness, what is the first question I want to ask? What does worthiness mean to you?
Worthiness to me is that undeniable sense of self and love for yourself. For me, self-worth is the key to change in the world, because women are the key to change in the world, but so many of us lack self-worth, and this leads us to not set boundaries for ourselves, and therefore we end up making some bad decisions, accepting less than we deserve from people, men and women, and being less supportive of people around us and judgmental of people around us because of our own insecurities. And all these issues of women not supporting other women and competition and being in abusive relationships, and this cycle that continues generationally over and over and over again, it all will end with self-worth. It really will. Like if we learn to love ourselves and value ourselves, that will just stop. So for me, worthiness is the key to unlocking so much for women and for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you say about this? I'll just tell you what I'm thinking about, because it's been so alive in me. And, last week we had the whole rollout of Brittany Higgins, and, in and around all of that, and so much victim blaming and so much onus is on, well, what was she thinking? Like we had some of our politicians say, what was she thinking when she said yes to, she's the one that got drunk, she's the one that got in the car, she's the one that said yes to going into the office. What is your thought around that in a practical yet realistic way?
I hate victim blaming.
Mm.
I I, I think it all comes. It always seems to be the woman's fault. And something I talk to women about a lot is you know how girls will be like, oh my God, she's such a slut.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
hate that, because first of all, you know, women can be promiscuous. They can have many sexual partners if they want to, as long as
Yeah.
it's consensual, as long as it's something that they want to do, as long as they're safe, they're not hurting themselves or anybody else. That's fine. But also keeping in mind that some women are promiscuous because of past experiences and lacking of self-worth and finding value in men. So by calling them these names, you're just reiterating to them what they already believe in themselves.
Yes.
That's a bit off track, but when it comes to victim blaming, I think that's something to keep in mind, that if you believe that a woman is doing that, is putting herself in harm's way time and time and time again.
Yeah.
Don't just roll your eyes and call her a slut. Reach out. What can you do to help her value herself enough so that she's not putting herself in harm's way? In regards to this situation, I don't care what a woman wears. I don't care how drunk she is. I don't care who she goes home with. The only person who raped that woman is the man that raped the woman. She played no part in that. She said no.
Yeah.
That's it. Doesn't matter what. She could be buck naked doing a lap dance for a man.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no right if there's no consent. So it doesn't, I don't care what a woman does. There's no excuse for it. And there's never a time that it's her fault.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, you know, it's, is, you know, there's so many things that you go, you know, you feel like that we've come such a long way, yet in so many ways it's like, we've still got so far to go. So tell me about, you know, your experience with your journey to worthy in, you know, how did you realize that this worthiness was the piece, and how do you still, you know, kind of when that unworthiness does surface, how do you meet it differently as it still comes up?
I'm aware now. I think that's the difference. My 20s and even the beginning of my 30s, all my teen years, my childhood, I wasn't aware that I was lacking self-worth, and that's why these things, I was making these decisions. That's why I was putting myself in situations in harm's way. I wasn't aware. Once I became aware, it was around 31. My mum had committed suicide. I was 30 weeks pregnant. The switch went off in my head. I need help. I need to, you know, start making some changes, and I need to value myself more. That's when it began for me. But I still have those weeks, quite a few recently, where I just feel the self-loathing, and I can't stop thinking about things that have happened in my life, and I just lose value in myself. And sometimes that's because of the people I've been in contact with. And we were just talking off camera before this, that intuition that's telling me that these people don't have my best interests at heart. I know that they're actually enjoying making me feel less than. And there's that insight, I guess, that I realize that now, so I can adjust my life accordingly. Step away from social media, step away, spend time with the people who I know love me and who I love. Do good in the world, donate to charity, you know, in some other way, to realize there's a whole life outside of you. Like you're not the be all and end all in the universe. And that stepping away from those toxic people, those toxic relationships, and having those boundaries and going, no, I don't deserve this. In the past, I wouldn't have thought that. I would have put up with it because subconsciously I felt like that's what I deserved. The way they were treating me is how I felt about myself, that I was a piece of crap, that I was worth nothing. I don't believe that about myself anymore. So now when I'm being treated that way, I'm just like, excuse you? No, you're not going to treat me like that. No. If you know, I can help you find your self-worth so you don't need to feel the need to treat other women like that. But yeah, not if it's going to be toxic and detrimental to my mental health. So yeah.
Absolutely. That, you know, that intuition piece, and you know, and that's the you know, when we were talking before, we started the live, we're talking about that, and that feeling of like, ignoring that nudge. I'm really curious to know about that moment in your life. I mean, I'm sure there's probably, I know there's been several moments where you ignore that intuition. But what was it that is there one moment where you went, where you said, okay, like it's all this is happening around me, and there's no boundaries, there's no, they're reflecting how I feel about myself. Was there a moment where you just went, okay, like this has got to stop, and where it just, the penny dropped?
There's been many moments, because the journey's ever evolving and things are changing in your life and new people are coming in and out. When I was 19 and I asked my abusive partner to leave, that was a real moment of, I'm proud of myself. It's just me and my child, and we've got this, and we don't need to be treated like this anymore.
Yeah.
But again, at that time, it was almost more for her than for me.
Yeah.
But a few years ago, I actually ended a friendship, and I was out for dinner with this person, and I'd had that feeling in my tummy with them all along. They were heaps of fun, love to gossip. Like, I love abstract gossip, that's fine. But it always seemed to be gossiping about our circle.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't like being in these kind of conversations. It feels disloyal. It feels not nice. But when you surround yourself with people like that, you get a little bit involved in it. I called her out on it at dinner. And she had said to me that she said some not very nice things about me, trying to bring my confidence down, because I was well on the journey.
Yeah.
And the more you come up, the more people want to push you back down again. But I'd begun the journey, and so she started saying, oh, well, it's not just me. This person said it too. And at that moment, I was like, oh, you're using other people who aren't even here to cement your argument. And I just realized right now that the way you talk about all these other people to me is 100% how you're talking about me to these other people. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. And actually, I'm not sorry. I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. I'd like to have a conversation with you and the other person. And anyway, it never eventuated because it wasn't true.
Yeah.
But I never, I think the thing is too, that I never felt the need to bring other people into it within the circle. I didn't tell anybody else about it. I didn't involve anybody else. I just quietly stepped away from that friendship and let her know why. And that was a real moment. My intuition had been telling me for ages that this person did not have my best or anybody else's best interests at heart. And yeah, it was a really good feeling to actually stand up and say, no, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. I was like, oh my God, I've set a boundary and I've stuck to it. This is cool. This is good. Yeah.
I love that. And what then, because sometimes when you do that and you make those, but like they're bold decisions, right? To just, there's one thing to go, I think we've all been in situations where, we've danced around these feelings of this group going, I don't feel good here, and that's like, for me, I'll often walk away and I'll be like, should I have said that? Was I too much? Like, am I too weird for them? And I feel like I have to like alter myself to fit into what I think that might be acceptable to them. So it has multiple facets. But in that, I want to ask you about the shame that can come with it. How do you dance with that shame that sometimes comes up with that wonder when you do take that stance in your worthiness?
I guess you've just got to be sure in who you are, and understand all the work that you've done, and know that you are enough as you are, and that your personality might not be what, I don't like to drink because of those feelings. It makes me extremely anxious, and I'm always like, oh, what did I do? Was I on the table? Like, even though I wasn't that drunk, like, was it too much? Oh my gosh, people talking about me now. Like, I just don't like that feeling. But I have been in groups of people where Look, I think it's important to note too that women can be just as toxic as men in relationships, and I'm talking friendships. You can have some very toxic friendships where one day they're your best friend, and then the next time you see them, they're quite cold, and there's no reason why, and you overthink, what have I done, and then you overcompensate to try and, no, don't be mad at me, I'm a great person.
Yeah.
And it's that, trying to change yourself to, some people enjoy that, some people play on that, some people like to manipulate and watch you, scramble.
Squirm.
I don't know why. Seeing other people anxious makes me anxious, so I just want everyone to be happy and calm and living their best life. But the shame that comes with it, I do get that still to this day. If I'm in a group setting where it's, and it can often be the case with Instagram, where there's big Instagram gatherings, there's a lot of personalities, there's a lot of egos there. There can be a lot of judgment there too. And you can feel like you don't fit in, that you're not right, and you want to alter yourself so that you can. But when you have that sense of self-worth, you just won't. You just stop yourself and you're like, no, this isn't for me. I'm going to leave early, or what I tend to do now is, if I sense that, I just push people back to arm's length.
Yeah.
So I don't have to completely remove them from my life, but they're not someone I'm going to speak to every week. They're not someone I'm going to see every week. And when I do catch up with them a couple of times a year, it's okay, but that's enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too, that it's okay to not want to be in the company of someone that everybody else loves and sings praises of. You've got to listen to yourself. And just because everybody else loves that person doesn't mean that they're right for you. Just like you're not right for everybody else.
Yeah. I really, really like, and because sometimes that, again, like that can be a question that sits in the back of your mind and we try to ignore and try to pretend that it's not there, right? Is that like, but everybody else likes them. Like everyone else sings their praises, but yet I feel this thing in my stomach where I go, kind of not feeling that. So I really love what you say to that. And yeah, that's really cool.
Well, you've got to remember too that we are surrounded by women lacking self-worth.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people might be drawn to someone toxic to them. And a lot of famous people are narcissists. A lot of successful people are narcissists because they don't often care. They can manipulate. So they do have all these people who adore them and, think that they're great. You hear it all the time. I mean, I experienced it myself with my abusive ex. Oh, he's such a great guy. No one could believe that he would ever do anything. Ted Bundy was just, so well loved. So it's often the case that these people have lots of fans and followers, and because they're very good at manipulating people that way. So your intuition might actually, well, it's yours, it's not wrong. But you're surrounded by people who are lacking their self-worth, and they might not be where you are either. So you just have to let them ride that out and figure it out for themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's even just keeping that in mind, and that's, it's so important that we have that anchor of self-worth, because the more we're anchored and the more we go, okay, you know what, everyone else is dancing with their own worthiness as well. So I can't sway and move into what direction they're pulling me in, right? It's because you just need to be anchored. Otherwise, we're just getting, I say, sucked into their vortex of.
And that's true. And you'll go backwards.
Yeah.
You'll go backwards and you'll end up in a toxic circle again when you've done so much work to remove yourself from that. And again, as you were saying, being anchored and standing where you are, you'll find you might not have as many people as that group over there, but you'll find the people that just wander over and they're like, oh, it's nice and safe over here, and I'm where you are and I like it here. And I'm going to join on this journey. And you tend to attract where you are. Yeah.
I really love that. And that's it feels all encompassing. It feels like this, I've been thinking about it like just this soft landing, which, you know what, like I think when we can be so distracted by, likes and comments and shares and engagement and all of these things, where we go, you know what, like, it's okay to have an intimate conversation. It's okay for one person to hear that thing, you know, it's okay. So that's, yeah. I want to ask you about, you know, because you're big on social media, you know, your podcast is this beautiful extension, you know, of you and your journey and creating this army. And that's something that I've noticed, you know, or noticed and like probably more felt about you, is this, you have this army of women, like you're pulling together this movement. And it's not like you're on this pedestal going, you know, like you're preaching and, you know, you're doing this thing. It's, you're on the front line with them, you know, it's a real sense of come with me, you know. And
This is the thing, like, it's, who am I to, you know, put myself on a pedestal and say, you know, I mean, I call myself the queen of worthiness, but that's the queen of my worthiness.
yeah,
But who am I to say that, you know, um, for me, it's about creating community, that we're all on this journey together. So what started as me sharing my story has become sharing mine and other women's stories, because self-worth is about, you know, letting go of those traumas and share and knowing you're not alone and creating community. And that is so important to me, and is something that that's why Journey to Worthy exists. It's for all women everywhere around the world to be a part of. It's not just for me to share my story and get likes, and, you know, it can't be about that. I've actually stopped working with a lot of brands on Instagram for that reason, because so much of it is, can you screenshot your analytics and your all of this sort of stuff, and I don't post to get those results. Does that make sense? Like, I would much rather have 50 people see and like a post and it to change their life than have 50,000 just for the sake of it. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely. And that's, I agree, like it's, you know, many years ago, like it's, you know, media release you know, 2008, 2009, 2010, and you screenshot all the shots and and it's just like, now I'm like, I can't even remember the last time
Yeah.
I can't even remember the last time I actually had a look at it, to be honest.
But isn't it nice though? It's so freeing, and it's so genuine. It's so genuine. And look, there's absolutely nothing. I think influencer marketing is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's a genuine job, a genuine profession.
Yeah.
For me, it was not great for my mental health.
Yeah.
So it's something that I still do when I feel I can, but only with brands that align, and only if it's going to make a difference, I guess. But I think it's a super, I just wanted to make that clear, that I don't not value that job at all. But for me, it's just not, it took away from what I was trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's just it's a little snippet as to where I think we're going, you know, finding this balance of, you know what, like, he's, you know, absolutely collaborate and aligned with, you know, people, products, services, whatever, that genuinely rock your world, that you're aligned in values, where you can actually create this beautiful movement. And
is it going to help the message, and is it going to make a difference? But at the same time, there's so many amazing people on Instagram providing content daily for free. And I implore other people not to roll their eyes if that person does a sponsored post, not to unfollow them because they're starting to work with brands. That's how they're putting so much time and effort into their platform, and you're following and you're getting value from it. So support them with that as well. You know, support them with their adverts and things like that, because it's how they're making some money as well. And they're worthy of that, right?
Exactly.
So again, it's just, sometimes it's not for me. I'm like, I can't put my energy into that when I'm working so hard to grow Journey to Worthy and reach as many women as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I really, you know, I really love that as well, because that is important. And I think that, you know, a lot of particularly, friends follow you or this, and then I've been in circles where they're going, oh, they drive me crazy when they post this or this or this, and I'm like, oh, they're for sure saying that about me, because
Right.
I'm constantly sharing, right? And because it's content, I spend a lot of time. We spend a lot of time, I'm watching your reels and, and all of your content. Like, it's like what people don't understand. If you're not a content creator and you're, let's say, a consumer, when you're creating content, it's your heart
It really is.
on a sleeve. It's
Yeah.
your heart going, okay, this is me. And sometimes it takes courage to do that, so I love what you say there about just support them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Support them, because it is a lot of work, and if you don't value it, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
But it is a free, and it's a visual platform. We need to remember too. Instagram, for example, it's a visual platform. We can't just post a caption with a blank screen. You need to post something. So there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that the image aligns with the message, that the reel is coming from somewhere that you want it to. Sometimes my reels are just stupid and silly, because I'm like, we need a break. We need a break in the deep and meaningful. And I'm going to show a different side to my personality today. But yeah, definitely. Same with podcasts. Look, most people don't make money for their podcast. So if they're doing a sponsored something in their Instagram, give it a like, give it a share, like support the brand as well. I think it's super important, because that's how they're able to continue to provide value on their platform. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I love that it's that mutual respect, saying, you know what, I see you and I value you beyond all the unseen things
yeah.
that we all do, which is really cool. I want to ask you about, I have two questions kind of under there. So I'm like, oh, which one wants to come through first? We're on social media, so let's talk about that. So I've noticed that, you do a lot, you're heavily on Instagram. And so I'm assuming so that Instagram and podcast is your baby. How do you balance that between, you've mentioned your mental health and your worthiness, and creating this journey and this army of women that you do so beautifully? How do you create content from a space where you feel absolutely anchored and without it jeopardizing your mental health? So what kind of boundaries do you have? So it's like, do you post every day? Do you only post when you're feeling absolutely connected? Like, where is your stance on that?
I love Instagram, because that's where my community is. And it's like catching up with friends a lot of the time. The DMs are always flowing, and you might see that I go quiet on stories for a while. I post every day, maybe every second day. It's not a chore for me. I really love doing it. If I'm having a bad time, I share that too. I actually grabbed my phone and filmed a panic attack, because I was like, I need everybody to know. And I was grabbing at my throat and my skin had started to go blotchy. And then I shared, I was explaining what was happening, why it was happening. And I'd been bullied online, actually. And I was just sharing the importance of always being kind and not knowing where someone's come from. And then I said my skin will break out. And I shared all that the days afterwards, the lumps that came on my chin just from that one panic attack. And I'm pretty open and honest too that, guys, I've been struggling, whether it's emotionally, mentally, or I'm having the best time ever. I want to be as genuine as possible. I want to be me 100% of the time. And what you see online is exactly what I'm like in person: the tripping over, the getting into someone else's car and realizing it's not mine, and turning up to this podcast yesterday.
That was half my fault, admittedly. So that was, we can meet each other there.
But that's like, it's genuine. So for me, it's not something I dread doing. I love doing it. I love catching up with everybody on there. I love planning content, shooting content. I get excited by it all because, I feel that this reel is going to it's going to turn the light on for someone. I really can't wait to post this one. Sometimes it's hard to come up with, like, because it's a visual platform, like scrolling through my photos going, well, I'm talking about something deep and I'm grinning and laughing. That doesn't really work. It is hard, and it is work and it is constant, but I really enjoyed doing it. But if I am having a bad time, and I feel like social media is a trigger, I will figure out what the triggers are. Is it a certain page? Is it a certain person? And I'll just place them on mute for a little while so they're not in my hemisphere. Because I do have enough insight to realize that a lot of the time it's not necessarily about that person. They haven't done anything wrong. There's something within me that triggers. It's their fault, something I need to work on, but I just need to remove them for a little bit. So mute, unfollow. I've done unfollow before, quite a bit. What doesn't serve. And that's how I protect myself. But yeah, if I need to switch off, I'll switch off. It's not the be all and end all, but I like to check in with my community. I like to chat with them. The army's everything. So Journey to Worth is nothing without the army. It's not just about me, it's about them. So I want to jump on. I look forward to it. But yeah, definitely the muting and doing what I need to do. But I'm happy to share my panic attacks and my bad times.
Absolutely. And I think, you do it really beautifully. It's that, sharing that valuable content of going, and it is like you read and you go, you know what, that is going to help someone, that is going to land for someone. And then, but sharing the realness, I think adds to not just the authenticity, but just, I think it makes everyone feel less alone.
Right. Yeah. Because I don't get the whole celebrity thing. Like, I don't, the question like, oh, who's a celebrity you'd love to have dinner with? And I'm like, I don't put people like they're like someone's a great actor. You're good at your job. That's awesome. But I'm not going to like sneak a photo of you in a cafe. Like, I'm not going to chase you down. I'm not going to line up for hours just to, shake your hand. I don't get that. So I think, if you're as genuine as possible and just a real person, you have this feeling of being left alone. Like, I just don't think the only people that should be up on pedestals are doctors and firemen and policemen and, the people out there saving lives and making a difference. I think in regards to celebrity status with sport and movies and all of that, you're just good at your job. And I don't think people should be worshipped as such.
No, and that's I agree, and that's something that I try and tell my girls all the time, particularly my older girl. Like, she's very worships, like obsessive with whatever talent, whatever it is, and I'm like, they're human, remember I've got so many stories where I've met famous people and just gone, like we had when I was 18, I used to live in Alice Springs, and I used to work in this restaurant. And so these group of guys come in and they all had dinner and they were paying. And I was like, oh, where are you guys off to? And they're going, oh, we're going to where I think it was like the Memo, this club in Alice. And I was like, oh, you're going to see Soundgarden. And they went, we are Soundgarden.
Renee.
And I was like, oh sorry. I had no idea.
I don't know either. I think we are all normal. We all poo.
Yeah.
We all have mental health issues. No one's better than anybody else. And we can absolutely admire people. And I see people sing or play music, and I'm just like, I admire it so much. And but I teach my girls the same thing. Like, especially my older daughter, she's 22, and she'll look at girls on Instagram and be like, oh, she's just perfect. I'm like, she poos as well and gets her period and bloating and is a bitch sometimes and has been hurt and, she's just a normal person. They're just photos. Like, stop. Like, these people are not the be all and end all, and you don't have to alter yourself to change to be like what you believe is a perfect life. Like, it's not. It's all just smoke and mirrors, and again, it's a visual platform. It's one photo. So yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. I totally agree. How do you feel about, just bearing in mind that I'm completely switching it up. How do you feel about,
Soundgarden?
so, yeah, Soundgarden. So you tell me a song, and I've got another story about a basketball player, but I'll share that another time. No, I've lost track. That's funny. Your pit stops, right? And because that was when I was writing your intro, I was like, you're not just one stat, you are multiple stats, and you really have had an incredible journey. And I want to ask you about your journey. And when people say, you need to rewrite your journey, you need to rewrite your story, and I have a real, kind of push pull time with this, because it's, I want to honor my experience, and it wasn't
Rewriting everything.
exactly, yeah.
To go through all of that and come out alive and doing what I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. We wouldn't be changing women's lives without having experienced that. I needed to experience all of that.
Yeah.
And that, I think you have to find a purpose from the trauma. You have to. It's you have to have, there needs to be a reason for it. So that's, I don't want to rewrite it. I wouldn't change it. As horrific as it is, and I can't, because you've got to focus on the present and the future, and the type of mum that I am, which is the job I'm most proud of in the world. I believe I'm an awesome mum, and I think it's because I've experienced those things, and my girls are more protected because I've experienced those things. I can write future chapters, like I'm in charge now, but I'm not rewriting anything. That is what it is. There's things I'm not proud of. I was a person that I'm embarrassed to admit that I was at many times in my life. But it is what it is, and I wouldn't rewrite any of it.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you reclaim that and the trauma and your experience, and turn it into, you're talking about finding a purpose for it? How did you reclaim that experience to go, you know what, like, this is, yes, I'm not proud, but it gave me this, and, it gave you purpose in so many ways. How did you reclaim it, and why?
For me, it was that day when I decided that things had to change. I did get therapy, because there's a lot to unlearn. There's a lot to unlearn, and it's just about making changes little by little, little by little. It's taken me, well, that was in 2011. No, 2012. That was in 2012 that the journey really, really, really began for me. And it's now, 9 years later. And I still am on that journey, and will be for the rest of my life. But I can't remember your question now. I feel like I just went.
It was about, how did you reclaim your story and use it for your purpose, and why?
I always knew I wanted to help. When I was younger, I thought I wanted to work in daycare. I thought I wanted to help children. Then I went through everything that I went through, including being in the system, a child in group homes. And I remember my support worker she didn't have children. She hadn't experienced anything in her life. And I just kept saying, you don't understand. Like, you don't understand. You're making these judgments of me, but you haven't experienced what I've experienced. And that was an awful time in my life, that things were happening to me and I was blamed. I remember I don't know if I can talk about this, but I remember being raped by two men in a bathroom all night long. My caseworker and the police came, took me out of the bathroom, and it was, hell? Like, I was such a pain in the ass.
Mm.
Like, got myself into this situation again.
Yeah.
I don't even think they got into any trouble, maybe from their mum and dad. Like,
Yeah.
I remember saying, right, I want to do this. I want to be a social worker. I want to help teenagers. And then I spoke to someone about it and realized my heart would hurt too much with a lot of the things that I'm going to experience. And that just changed throughout time. Like, I need to help women. I need to help women. Then I tried doing that through social media. I started a blog with Gold Coast Musings at the time. And I talked about my eating disorder.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to help one person realize that they can get better. And that's when social media for me started to grow and the community started to grow.
Yeah.
And it was only last year that I spoke out about my childhood sexual abuse for the first time ever. Like, apart from my husband, no one knew. And I spoke about it on the podcast. And that was me reclaiming it because I had so much shame and guilt with that. And telling it was like, oh, I'm not going to be quiet. I'm not going to keep his secret. Like, enough. Like, you know, I shouldn't say it was the first time that anybody knew. I did tell my parents. Sorry, I just meant outside of like family. So that was part of it for me, owning the story, sharing the story, and then helping other women. And then I'm like, oh, I had a business at the time, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I really want to help women, but how can I do this? Like, how can I do this online? I don't want to keep promoting other brands for payments so that I can afford to, you know, keep doing this. And then a friend said to me, oh, well, you should be a counselor. And I'm like, what? It makes so much sense. Sold my business, started studying counselling straight away. For me, it's super important that if Instagram disappeared tomorrow, that I can still help women, because that is my goal, that I just want to help women. So and I'm not going to lie, I heal so much through helping others. When I get the messages that a certain post or a certain story, you know, it really touched them and helped them realize something, that's everything to me. Everything to me. And I've even said that journey to worthy is going to end some marriages. Ain't even angry about it. Do not care. I hope it does. I hope it really does end some toxic marriages and that people walk away from an unsafe situation. Happy to own that and be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I've been thinking about this a lot. We've been journeying this in one of my courses, and you know, so last week it was about, you know, we were dancing with the shadows and, you know, integrating those parts of ourselves and reclaiming, you know, our stories. And you know, and I'm just sitting with how many times, how many women have been, you know, may not have been sexually abused or raped, but I don't know, like, I reckon every single woman would experience some sort of sexual assault.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's...
It goes back to school. I'm telling you now, most girls would have had their dress lifted. Someone would have grabbed their boob, called them frigid because they wouldn't do you know, that was the word back then, wouldn't do what a boy wanted them to do. And I experienced all that at school. And I remember it well, because for me it triggered, having been sexually abused and valuing myself on what I could do for men. It's something that stayed with me. I bet you there's lots of things that girls have forgotten about because there wasn't that history. They've forgotten about it, but it's been ingrained. And that's what I always say, you are born worthy. It's somewhere along the way that something has told you otherwise. But you're not born doubting yourself. You are born with all your worth. And it's the belief, you know, and that's why everything we say and do is so important, especially around children. I remember my daughter saying to me, oh, I've got a chubby belly, and looking in the mirror. And it was a teaching moment, because instead of going to her, no, you don't, I just said, and she's like, nothing, I was just saying. So I didn't make a big deal out of it, because what's wrong with having a chubby belly? It's like if someone says, I'm fat. No, you're not. You're beautiful. As if to say that fat's not beautiful. Like, it's just about changing the way we talk, the language, the way we approach things. Like, not everything has to be negative. Fat's not negative. Stop, you know, let's not use it as an insult. It's not a negative thing. Fat is fat. It exists. We're all different shapes and sizes. Like, so with my daughter, if she points out something, I'm like, Like she'll say to me,
Yeah.
your bum wobbles so much when you do that. And I'm like, and I just do it more. Like it's not a bad thing. It's not an insult. She's stating the fact it wobbles. She's correct.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. And that's so much like, we punish ourselves so often, like, and it's just, and it can be just so relentless, for these crazy things. And, and it preoccupies so much of our brain space. And you think like there's nothing left for anything else.
It's an energy sapper. And I'm like a full-time people pleaser. That's what I used to be. And no wonder I'm tired all the time. Like so much energy put into trying to change other people's opinion of me, like, no, you've got it wrong. I'm nice. I'm a good person. But it was me. I needed to believe that.
Yes.
And I was looking for it from them. Like, you don't like me. You need to like me. So I like me. Now it's just, I still catch myself. Like I've had some weeks where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I trying so hard to impress this person?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I don't even like them either. Like, what am I doing? Energy when I've got this amazing husband, some amazing friends, the most beautiful children, gorgeous pets, that I could be putting that energy into them or back into myself instead.
Yeah.
It's so draining and it is physically exhausting.
Yeah. It really, really is. Like
but it's such a thing for women, the pressure that we place upon ourselves is because there's always this, it's especially for women, this perfection. And it goes back all the way to when women couldn't work. Their only purpose was to find a man, get married and have children. So women were competing with each other for a man, right? And in order to get the man, they had to be the prettiest. They had to be the funniest. They had to be the best. And it created competition between women to fight for man. And it's almost like we haven't evolved from that. We've evolved in the way that it might not be for a man's attention, but it might be for the job or for the status or for the clout or whatever the case may be. But there's still that competitiveness with women that is just ingrained in us, and that's all generational, right? So that's what I'm trying to change now with women now. So with their children, that this generational habits and societal idealistic things are all changed. And it's just hard. There's like women are working now but still doing a majority of the home duties, so they've still got the full-time, I'm talking parents particularly, they're still doing most of the housework, they've still got most of the mental load, and they're still working, so they're expected to be good at all of that and still be a lover, still have sex with their partner, still be a good friend. And that's why we're tired.
Absolutely. The expectations are absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And that's, I was saying to some friends yesterday, and that's, I think the majority of women really want, in regards to, they crave these wild and sensual connections with their lovers or husbands or partners or whoever, but yet they're frigging exhausted.
And resentful without, sometimes they might not even realize it, but there's this resentment if you've got to leave the house all day and go to work, and you just get to go to work and come home. Like my husband and I still talk about it to this day. I'm like, look, you get to come home, pop the recliner, go in the theatre room and watch TV. I've been at home all day, but I still cook. That's just our relationship. It's our agreement. I still cook the dinner. It's, I'm probably too much of a control freak to change it now. But, I'm like, to be fair, you get to go to work and come home. That's it. Your work is exhausting. I totally respect that. But it's all you have to do. I literally do everything else. Now, he helps around the house, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I do the bills. I've got the mental load of everything. And he appreciates that, understands it. And lets me sleep in weekends and all of that sort of stuff. I shouldn't say lets me, but there is such a big mental load for women. We tend to take on more of the mental load as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, and sometimes, as you're saying, like it's so ingrained in our dialogue that we don't even realize. So, and once we start to open up that conversation, and like, was it last week or something. I think it was last week, and I cooked dinner, and I'm the same. Like, I cooked the majority of meals, and my partner will often say, like, can I help you? And often I'm like you. I'm like, no. I actually quite enjoy doing it. And I cooked enough, and he's like, oh, so there'll be enough for you for like when you cook tomorrow night. And I'm just looked at him like, no, that's not okay. Like, you need to, we need to be aware of this. We need to be aware of the language
Yeah.
that we use, and to to just break down that conditioning that's so ingrained in us.
It's we are still this is about beginning change. Change will happen, and I know Journey to Worthy will do that, because I won't stop until it does.
Yeah.
But I am also aware that we are generations away. But it starts here. It has to start
Absolutely.
somewhere, right? So the
Absolutely.
women who we are changing now will make the difference for the women, the generation below them, and so on and so forth. Because you think of how far we've come.
Yeah.
That's decades and decades and generations of where our great grandmothers were to now. So but the work's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. And I was writing a post last week because it really dawned on me that it's, as you say, we do it for, we do it for ourselves, but we do it for the generations to
Mm-hmm.
come. But also we do it for the generations before us.
Yeah.
But they had physical, tangible restrictions and limits and everything else that was standing in their way. So many barriers, but in so many ways that they've removed for us. And right now, I think, like our generation, the only barriers are internal for us.
Yeah.
In so many ways. So this is why the work that you do is so friggin' important, this journey to worthy. Where are you at now with worthiness in terms of, like, if it's this evolution of things that's always going to be there, you're always going to dance with it. How is it alive in you right now?
It's something I'm aware of every day. And I think because I make sure that I'm working on it every day, it's a constant in my life. So, and it ebbs and flows. So I'm also a model, and that can really F with my worthiness sometimes. And I'm in a part of the most amazing agency. I'm so lucky. Everybody, which is just one of the only diverse modeling agencies in Australia. And you can just be you, and you'll get booked based on being you. But I still struggle with that. With that in self-worth with my partner. I'm really working on language with him. We're both figuring things out. It's just literally with my children as well. It's something I'm consistently working on, and being very aware of what I'm feeling. And if I am feeling something, why am I feeling, or if I reacted to something some way, why? So I will never have an argument with someone and just wipe my hands of them and be like, what a bitch. I will always look at myself. How did I contribute to that? Why did it escalate like that? Why am I feeling this way? Why did this happen? And that's such an important part of the worthiness journey, is insight, because nothing changes without knowing why it's happening. So there's always a reason behind behavior. But yeah, so it's alive and well. I'm extremely sore and bloated today, and that reminder that I'm more than my body, and I don't need to place all my worth in my appearance. And but then it's okay to also enjoy looking good as well. It doesn't. Yeah, I remember speaking to a girl on a podcast, and she had been in a car accident, and she has a scar on her tummy.
Yeah.
And she'd been trying for ages to get surgery to fix it, and that they said, we can't fix it. And she just worked on loving herself as part of the Journey to Worthy Army, posted a bikini for the first time, said my scar, whatever, and then got told that they could operate. And she said to me, I feel like I can't now. I feel like I can't operate because like I've posted all this stuff and I'm, said that I love myself anyway. And I said, that's why you can operate now. That's why you should operate now, because you love yourself anyway. If you'd done it before, I can tell you no scar revision surgery would have made you happy, because you were just chasing perfection and you were basing your worth on that scar and what you looked like in a bikini. But now that you already know that you're worth so much more than that, fix it. You don't need to keep it to fit an illusion that, you accept yourself. It's the same with a lot of people ask me what I think about Botox and fillers and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, the same I feel about makeup and, nice clothes and things like that, earrings, if they make me feel good, and what's wrong with that? Like there's nothing wrong with that. If it didn't exist and I had to live forever without makeup and jewelry, I would still love myself. So
I agree. And that's, like, let people have their own exploration. And if it makes them feel good, like, do it. Do it. Like, full permission to do whatever the fuck you want.
Exactly. I always say, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, be wild. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. You've had a really, I won't say unique, but I think it's something that we'll all face and go through is grief.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your journey with grief and what you've realized.
So there's been different types of grief. I had to grieve my childhood when I told my parents that I was being sexually abused by my grandfather at 8 years old. That was the end of that innocence. And my parents told me that. They said I became an adult that day. I am still grieving. Like, I won't cry because I don't cry, but I can feel it. It just sits there. I'm so sad still that happened to me and that I missed out on a normal childhood. I've always struggled to form friendships and relationships with people because I just felt different. I looked at things different. It's hard to explain. I just felt very alone, and that I'd experienced something that others hadn't, and that I was dirty and I was, I guess not worthy. So I've always struggled, and trusting people as well, struggled with trusting people. So I've had to grieve that, and I'm still grieving that. I lost my dad at 25 to a sudden heart attack. That was my first real experience with death grief. And I was a real victim with that, I think. It was very much, of course, this is happening. Of course, my dad's dying. Like, this is my life. It's just another thing that's happened. And I really had to learn to work through that. That took a long time. I felt that life was unfair, which is basically how it always felt, but these things keep happening. Life is unfair. So how I dealt with that was that I told myself that Dad had died for a reason, that if he hadn't died when he did, he might have been in a crash later that would have killed one of my children, or he might have developed cancer and gone in a horrible way, not quick like he did. And that just helped me, that he had to go then to save something worse happening later. And that just made me feel better about it. But then my mum became really unwell, so it kind of took the focus off, which was a real part of it, I guess, in realizing that helping other people is really important for self-care. I think it's just to remind yourself that there's so much more outside of you. And then when you've got that victim mentality where you think that things are happening to you and your life is bad and people are mean and this and that and the other, that, people probably don't really care. They're quite busy with their own stuff. So mum 2 years after Dad passed away, attempted suicide. She had booked herself into a hotel, and they discovered her when she didn't check out. And she was very unwell, went into intensive care, but survived. I had to grieve losing my mum then, even though she was still alive, because she was a completely different person then. She'd been hiding the depression. And you look back through the photos and you see the light die in her eyes after Dad passed away. So I had to, I guess, grieve whatever relationship I had with my mum then, because she was, yeah, it just wasn't the same. And she wasn't there for me anymore because she was so consumed with what was going on with herself and her medication. Um, I thought that me having another baby would be something fantastic for her. But yeah, she took her own life when I was 30 weeks pregnant, and believed that, she even wrote in the note that 30 weeks was a safe time, that if the stress of her dying put me into labor, that the baby might be okay, and that everyone will be distracted with this amazing new life, that they won't worry and hurt over her. So warped. But so then I had to, yeah, learn to grieve that as well. But mum passed. Well, the fact that mum killed herself was a massive turning point for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is just, I didn't feel like a victim this time. I actually felt some peace for her, which a lot of people don't understand. But my mum tried. She was seeing a psychologist, a psychiatrist. She had amazing private healthcare, and she would book herself into the private mental institute of hospital. I don't know the correct word for it. Whenever she felt the need. She started an all-female golf group. She tried dating. She tried working. She tried volunteering. She really, really, really tried. She even asked for electric shock therapy, but they said, unfortunately, her type of depression wasn't going to work. She tried so much. The medication ended up so bad that even her psychiatrist said that the medication was worse than the disease, because the symptoms from the amount of medication, she was a zombie. So that was a different experience to when Dad passed away, because I was like, I felt a bit of relief, like, no, because that was Mum's fourth attempt, so it was continually happening. But I felt peace for her too, because I had seen artwork that she'd drawn. Art therapy is part of their healing in the hospital.
Yeah.
And they had to describe what their anxiety and depression, and she had to draw what it felt like when she felt the need to want to die. And she just drew flames, and she just described it as heating up from the inside out and just needing it to end, just needing it to stop. And I was just like, oh, Mum, I'm so glad you're not on fire anymore. Like, yeah. And that was just a really different, yeah, because my nan was like, I'm so angry at her. It's so selfish. And I'm like, I'm not angry at her at all. Like, yes, it's selfish in the fact that we're all left behind hurting and missing her, and the kids especially. Yeah, again, had to grieve not the kids not having their grandma anymore. Already lost their grandpa. Kalani was born without grandparents, so she doesn't know any different. But yeah, it's just all the different, and it comes and goes. Like, I still miss being able to call Mum and talk to her about things. But that being said, I don't know if Journey to Worthy would exist if Mum was still alive. So I don't want to rewrite it.
No.
So yeah.
And it's that piece that's absolutely. I resonate, with that a lot. And I was a lot. My mum passed away. She had leukemia, and a lot of people, when she did pass, said at least she's not in any pain. And I didn't find that comforting at all. But for me, the relief was more about, I knew how much she struggled mentally and emotionally, and she wanted to die for decades, like since I was a teenager. So, we're talking 30 years. She fought this.
Yeah.
And so
That's a
for
fight.
me,
I think that's what people don't understand. Like, it's a fight. Like, it's every day is a battle for them to stay on this earth.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was the peace element for me, and that's, she's at peace because she doesn't have to fight with herself anymore. She doesn't have to fight with life, So so I really get that. With all of this, there's a journey to worthy. All of these things that have happened. How have you brought in and allowed yourself to feel deep pleasure and deep hedonism throughout all of it? What has that piece opened up for you? Because I know that a lot of, especially when we're talking about sexual abuse, we're talking about physical abuse, grief, like the first thing we shut down is pleasure and hedonism.
Mhm.
And because that can feel very unsafe. How did you open yourself up and let yourself experience hedonism and pleasure?
I used to use, I didn't shut down sexually. I became quite sexual
Yeah.
very young. Um, I searched for it in a sense. Since finding my worth, I'm still, yeah, sex is different for me now. It's
Yeah.
very much about what I want,
Yeah.
and not just about being, the porn star that does everything that pornos do and being that, sex beast. It's about, well, that doesn't even feel good. So it's about mutual pleasure. It's about, it's so different now. So that part of me, like, I never went off sex in that sense, but it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
It was not about me. It was not about my pleasure. It was about pleasuring someone else
Other.
and that making me feel good, but
Yeah.
it didn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
Like it's,
Yeah. It's the
yeah,
paradox. Absolutely. I think
yeah.
everyone can resonate with that.
But now, like, my husband laughs because I don't know if I can say this on here, but he'll be like,
Whatever you want.
"Hey, can I have a blowjob?" And I'll be like, and he just laughs now because he's like, I'm like, "Excuse me, what did you ask me? What am I getting in this?" Like, I mean, are you gonna, have a conversation with me first? Or he teases me now because he's just like, he'll say things. And he's like,
Yeah.
sorry, you're worthy. Like, it's just, we just give each other. Um, but yeah, it's definitely, sex is such a huge part of it. And that's what I was saying about the promiscuity
Mm.
um, prior. Like, don't judge girls, don't write them off as just being sluts, whatever that even means. Because yeah, one, they might be consenting and enjoying it, and two, there might be a whole deep-seated other reason for why they're doing what they're doing, and they need their sisters beside them, not knocking them down. But I guess the letting go of the shame and guilt was the only way I was able to find that peace and happiness, considering, because I do look back and I go over my life and I'm just like, it makes me really emotional when I think about it. And I'm like, how am I here? Like, how did I get here? And it was just that process and work about changing my mindset from the negative mindset of life happening to me to, no, I'm creating this life.
Yeah.
How can I change, like, create it differently moving forward? Not about rewriting the story, but you can write the future chapters, right? So that's so much, it's so much work. It's so much work. It's not, there is that light bulb moment when you realize you want it to change.
Yeah.
And there's so much work that comes with that afterwards. So I quite often have women say to me that buying a t-shirt is the first tangible thing that they're doing, that they're putting it on. They're saying, I'm worthy. I don't know how I'm going to feel, like, I don't know how I'm going to feel this,
Yeah.
but I'm dedicated to making it happen. And that's the first step. And then it goes like this. You'll be like, oh, I feel great. Oh, I hate myself. I love myself. I hate myself. And it'll be like that for the rest of our lives. But yeah, letting go of the guilt and shame was key for me to find my self-worth. And yeah, for me, it was talking about it. But I get women message me and they're like, oh, I don't want to share it on social media. I'm like, don't. Oh my God, you don't have to. If you want to talk about it with someone, and if you have a friend who's safe to talk to about it, I can recommend some therapists nearby, or go to your GP, get a mental health care plan, go to Kmart, spend $2 on a journal, write it down. This is something that I realized I was doing when I was about 12. I used to write stories, characters. It was me. The character was me, and I was writing scenarios in my life. I would write them down, feel how they made me feel, cry, whatever, and then I tear them up into tiny little pieces, so that in my head, mum and dad were going to stick them all back together and read it. So and put it in the bin. I now realize that was me, writing down everything, letting it all out as a story.
Yeah.
I've thought about writing a book, and in the past, when I've thought about writing a book, I'm like, oh no, I'll tell my life story, but I'll create a character and I'll why? Well, no, own it. This is your story. This is your life. And if you want to write it in third person, the character's name is Vanessa. It's not someone
Yes.
else. You know,
Yeah.
you can tell the story of your life, and there's no shame in it. You don't have to pretend that it was someone else's story.
Yeah.
It's yours, and you are worthy of a happy life despite everything that you've been through, and knowing that it wasn't your fault. And I think that goes back to the very beginning of what you were saying about the rape in Parliament. At the same time, we have to be careful of the situations we put ourselves in. We have to look after ourselves first. And and that's why I don't drink, because I might say and do things that I'm not comfortable with saying and doing. That doesn't ever mean that you can ever be raped or anything like that, but being careful of yourself, I guess, to not put yourself in situations in harm's way, I guess. Like, don't jump in a cage full of snakes. It's not your fault if they bite you, but try not to put yourself in there. Look after you. Yeah. And I used to put myself in some pretty awful situations. I never hitchhiked though. I never I was always like, no, I'm going to get murdered if I get hit. I had enough insight to know that that was dangerous.
Yeah.
Slept in a park, mind you, but didn't want to hitchhike. But my friend told me that these guys were friends of hers, but they weren't. So I did hitchhike unwillingly, and had a gun pulled on me.
Wow.
And I'd unwillingly put myself in that situation, but I had enough awareness to realize this was a bad situation, and they were trying to force us to do things sexually. And I said, the gun's not real. And I was just such a smart ass, but I didn't care. And at that point, I was like, whatever, I don't even care. Kill me, I don't care. I said, if it's real, shoot the tree. And he said, no, I'm not going to shoot the tree, and someone will hear. I said, well, then you're not going to shoot me, are you? And I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. My friend's like, just do it. Just do it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Leave me here. I'm not doing it. But it's avoiding situations like that, I guess. And during my teenage years, I was placed in situations like that a lot, and I didn't remove myself from them. I didn't avoid those situations. So it's not, the other side, I guess. It will never, ever be anybody's fault for being drunk, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But we need to also try and protect ourselves from those situations too.
Yeah.
If we find ourselves in them and something bad happens, not your fault, not your fault. But just be aware and try and avoid putting yourself in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, and I think everyone wishes that it was a certain way, a different way, that we didn't have to, that we could just go and do this thing. But the reality of it is that we do have to, we do have to be careful.
It sucks, and it's so not politically correct to say, like, yes, we should be able to walk to our car without holding our key like this.
Yes.
We should. I agree. We should. But I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
Because the statistics show that there is a chance that I will, that a man will attack me, and that I will not go home alive. It needs to change. We will change it. But at this point in time, it's still like that. I've taught my 8-year-old daughter that if someone tries to take her from mummy, she is to kill them.
Yeah.
Said, you will not go, because she was like, I won't go to jail. I said, you will not go to jail if someone's trying to hurt you. You do whatever it takes to get back to mummy, because if they take you, you're not coming home. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I need her to be aware, because that is the way it is. So I don't want her to put herself in those situations. It wouldn't be her fault if it happened, but I want her to be aware enough to not put herself in those situations. I don't care if they've got a puppy or a cat or whatever. And now she jokes that if someone said, oh, I'm a friend of mummy's, she wants you to come home with me, that she'd say, oh, that's a lie. My mum doesn't have any friends. She thinks she's hilarious. Like, oh yeah, so funny. There's no point denying the reality either. And I've been asked a few times, do you hate men? Like, I don't hate men, but I also admit that they are the species I am most scared of.
Yeah.
The animal that I am most scared of in this world is humans and human males.
Yeah.
There's a pack mentality when they're together. I talk to my husband about it all the time. And the only way that's going to stop is when men start stopping it. They need to stand up in a group and say, that's not on, stop it. Don't talk to her like that. Don't look at her like that. Don't show me that. And until that starts happening, Yeah.
Yeah.
It won't change. And the
Yeah.
thing in Parliament, like, why is it being run by middle-aged white men? Like, where's the diversity?
Yeah. Exactly.
Men are making decisions based, you know, same with abortion in other countries. Men are making these decisions.
Yeah.
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 Sorry, I went off again.
No, that's and it's all very valid points, and I absolutely agree. One last question before we wrap up, and that is, what is turning you on right now?
Me, I'm turning myself on at the moment. I've just been so open in my sexuality and loving my body, lights on and all. Like, I don't care. Haven't shaved, don't care. I, you know, used to, my husband would laugh because I was so self-conscious of my bum because of my stretch marks and things, that I would cover my bum, but nothing else. And it's like, I can see your vagina, I can see your boobs, and you're worried about your bum. Crazy woman. But now I'll just like jiggle it, walk downstairs naked, cook naked. Don't do it. Burns. Yeah, you get burns in places you don't want burns. Do not cook naked. But yeah, it's exploration at the moment, and just really loving who I am, and being with my husband saying, well, no, we're not doing that, because I'm not here to just pleasure you. Unless I offer it to you. Yeah. I'm not just here to just pleasure you. This is not about you. This is a joint thing. And he's great. Like, so don't want to talk about it too much, but he's fantastic, a very giving partner, and definitely not one-sided at all. But yeah, so I guess I'm turning myself on.
That's amazing. I love that. And because that's where exploration starts, right? Is with self. So I think that is like the best answer ever. Vanessa, thank you so much for being on the show, and
being me and doing all you do.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have these conversations. And you know, and for everybody watching or tuning in, is Vanessa is touring this year. She's in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne.
That's the plan. It's been put on the back burner a little bit because of COVID. We're trying to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the plan. Lots coming. Hopefully more events. Season 3 of the podcast.
Yeah.
YouTube channel coming. Lots of exciting things, and new merch dropping in April.
Amazing. I'll put all of your links to all the bits and all the things in the show notes. But thank you so much for starting this movement, and you know, being this voice and creating this army, because it's so important that we have people like you doing this amazing work. So thank you for being on the show, but thank you for creating the journey to worthy, and being, you know, having the courage to dance with it all and do it.
Shining a light on it. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thanks, gorgeous. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Bye, everybody.